Hey guys, so welcome back to Lex Reads. So in today's video, I wanted to discuss the books that I read when I got back into Black literature and when I got back into literature in general. But of course, I wanted to focus on, Black literature. So I Googled and a list popped up and it was titled, where to start when you want to get into Black classical lit. And that list, again, I gravitated towards it and it really did help me. Like I said before in a previous video, I looked to anthologies and then I also looked to this list, and this was a jumping off point for my reading. And I wanted to share, with you guys some of the books that were considered Black classics and the books that I read. So the first one is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Now, of course, this is a classic. This will forever be my favorite book of all times. This was the first book I picked up on my own when I was 14. As a kid, I was not a reader, and I got into reader in my late 20s. And I revisited this when I saw that list, like I said, and oh my goodness, this is not only a book that a Black girl can relate to, a Black woman can relate to, but just a girl in general. But of course, it's going to have a special place, in our hearts being a Black woman, because you know how she feels. And I can just go on and on and on about this book. But of course, Maya is, like I said, my favorite author, and this is my favorite book. The next one is Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Now, you guys know I love the Harlem Renaissance, and I first saw the TV movie that Oprah Winfrey produced, and Halle Berry played Janie, and loved it and loved the story. And I always wanted to read the book, so when I saw it was on this list, this was probably my first one that I read off that list and loved it. If you guys know anything about this book, Tea Cake, oh, my heart. I just was so bitter, but I understood why, things were played out in this book. And Zora Neale Hurston, her writing is like poetry. She writes so lyrical, and I can go on and on and on about this book, but a must read. The next is Go Tell on the Mountain by James Baldwin. This is one of James Baldwin's, this was his first book, and it's semi-autobiographical. James Baldwin has got a resurgence, in the past 2 years, and it's because he was so ahead of his time when it comes to race, when it comes to gender, when it comes to sexuality. He took the cake on that, and I'm so glad that he is getting his praise now, because this man was brilliant. And I read all of James Baldwin's fictional catalog in 2020 and was just flabbergasted, because people know him and know him because of his nonfiction, but he can write fiction like no other. And yeah, get into this. The next is Toni Morrison, Beloved. Now, of course, you cannot have a list of Black classic literature and not mention a Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison, no one can write like Toni Morrison, like, period. And although this was not my favorite, I do understand why it's considered a Black, classic and considered Black literature. And although it was disturbing, it was also beautiful, it was also painful, it was also angry, it was also sad. She goes through every emotion in this book, and it's Toni Morrison. Come on now. Next is Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man. Now, when I read this book, I was so shocked that it was published in 1952, and the reason why is it was so modern. When I was reading this, I didn't feel like, again, that it was published in 1952. He is another Black author that knows how to tell a story. He grips you and holds you until you cannot go. And although I was upset while reading this book, it's a book that's necessary. And it's not just necessary for Black literature, it's necessary for American literature in general. But again, you cannot deny that this is a Black classic. Come on now. The next one is Native Son by Richard Wright. Now, this is another one where it was painful, but it was necessary. Richard Wright is a fantastic writer. He has a way of being so detailed, where sometimes it's not boring because it is necessary when he tells the story, but it can just be, oh my goodness, can you kind of hurry up a little bit? And it was a particular scene where Bigger has murdered a white female, and the way he describes depositing the body into, like, it's, oh my goodness, it's like no other. And he described that in about 10 pages, and oh Lord, I was just ready to throw the book on the ground. But again, after all of that, I did enjoy it. Also, this is another one that it's modern. It feels so modern, which is sad to me because this book was written in when was this book written in? The 1950s, I want to say. But it's set in the 1930s in Chicago. And Bigger has that same mindset that some Black men in America still have, and that's what makes it so sad. It's like we haven't changed. And yeah, I can go again on and on and on about this book, but yeah, guys. The next one is A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. Now, Ernest J. Gaines, he's another author that it deals with Black men when it comes to, like, the justice system that are done in injustice. It deals with robbery, murder, just like petty theft, just crimes when it comes to Black men. And you see their woes and how they feel. And he really gets in the mindset of a Black man. And I read all of his fictional catalog last year, and ooh, it was a ride. All of his books are set in the South. They're set in Louisiana. And if you know anything about, especially the South, when it comes to Black men in jail and crime, they're always usually done wrong. And he really does hold on that. And you see everything, again, when it comes to, crime, dealing with Black men. So, yeah. And the last one is Roots by Alex Haley. Now, I obviously consider this a Black classic, but this is considered an American classic to me because Alex Haley, again, I'm going to keep on saying these authors, they know how to tell a story. They know how to tell a tale. And this did not read like nonfiction. As you guys know, I love Queen. That is about his great-grandmother on his father's side. And I also adore the miniseries. Now in the beginning of Roots, it's kind of boring, but the reason why it's boring, he's setting up everything. So of course it's going to be a little bit of a bore. But this is like beyond a family tree. You have to realize, and I have to realize, like, Alexis, this is a lot that he has to cover. So of course you want to have the details. You want it to be, precise. And again, Alex was just a fantastic writer. And if you've seen the miniseries, if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you, see it. And I recently revisited watching Roots, and it's another one that is difficult. It makes you angry, but it's another one that is necessary. All these books are necessary. They honestly are. And like I said, it can be hard, but it has to be told. And he knows how to tell a story. And yeah, I would urge you guys to read Roots. I would urge you guys to read all of these, books that are considered classics by Blacks, because again, to me, I always say that no one can write like a Black person. Maybe I'm biased, but I just like the way we tell stories. And You know, like I said before, this list really did help me. And by having this list, I was able to discover even more writers that are, again, that I classify as unsung, unknown. And I'm going to do a separate video and have a separate list of books that I consider classics that, again, are not talked about. But we just need to read them and have them. So, yeah, guys, that's all I have for you. I'll be back next to discuss more Black books.